This is a few days out from NFL season, so I'm going to be sharing my NFL future bets, my outright bets for the upcoming NFL season. As mentioned as well a few episodes ago, I'm going to have a bit of a segment with my guy Daily College Bets. We've banged our heads together and come up with a few future bets that we're both on the same page with. We've done a few write-ups which we've posted on Twitter. And this is basically going to have a little segment where I'm going to break those down for everyone that's listening and watching as well as a few of my own, a few player prop future bets, a few team prop future bets. But as always, before we get into it, I want to send you all over to my Twitter. Make sure you click that follow button, like and retweet this episode when it comes out. If you're heavily into NFL and NFL fantasy in particular, you want to be entering this competition here on my pinned tweet. I'm giving away 3 free tickets into the Fan Team NFL season-long contest. All you're going to do to enter, retweet this tweet and comment NFL for your chance to be entered. Winners will be announced on the 2nd of September, so you've got a few days left. I'll be drawing that in the fantasy football episode I've got coming out in a few days. As well as that, obviously, I mentioned me and Daly are going to be doing a few plays together, so make sure you get over to Daily College Bets Twitter. There you can see I retweet him all the time, so you can go on my profile and go over to his, drop him a follow. He's the college goat, and likewise with YouTube, head over to YouTube, drop me a sub, share my videos. You've got my previous episodes for the AFC and the NFC previews in the NFL, EPL for football or soccer. And then again, head over to Daily College Bets' YouTube as well. Drop him a subscription. Similar to myself with NFL, he's the college goat. So anything you need to know about college football. You need to go over to Daily's YouTube. He's broken down every college division in his videos, and he does a weekly Spaces on Twitter as well for his weekly college football plays. So drop him a sub, tell him your boy Elite Wages sent you over. So let's get into myself and Daily College Bets' future bets that we have together for this upcoming NFL season. Off with the player props, starting off with this guy, Drake London. 2014 regular season stats, 100 receptions, 1,271 total receiving yards, 9 touchdowns. He was top 10 wide receiver in all 3 of those categories. He actually earned the 3rd most targets in the NFL last season. Last year down the stretch, he came alive with Michael Penix Jr. as his quarterback. Obviously, they had a bit of an issue with the quarterback room. Kirk Cousins was the starter. But Michael Penix Jr. was put into the season. And London sort of came alive with him as his quarterback. London averaged over 100 yards and 13 targets per game with Penix Jr. Obviously, the offensive line gave him some fairly decent protection. Their O-line actually ranks inside the top 10 in many categories in the ranking charts. Drake London had 100 catches last season, led the team. Again, as I said, top 10 in the league. 158 total targets for him in what was a somewhat bad passing offense at certain times during the season. He's the clear-cut number 1 wide receiver. Again, almost double the receptions to Darnell Mooney, and he's clearly the go-to guy in the red zone for the Falcons as well. He's got the exact same competition this year as he did last year, so nothing much should change in terms of their offense. And again, he's got the same offensive coordinator as he did last year as well. So putting all that together, Drake London should have another decent season this year. His first 2 seasons finished just shy of the 1,000 yard mark. Obviously, before last season, going over 1,271 yards in total. But that was, again, those first 2 seasons, that was with some mediocre quarterback play, where the quarterback position was more uncertain, playing with Marcus Mariota and Desmond Ridder. They both have failed to eclipse the 3,000 yard passing mark in those seasons. So for our first future bet, it's going to be, well, the projection for this is 1,300 receiving yards, so he's going to do better than he did last year according to our predictions. And the best bet for this player is going to be Drake London over 1,100.5 receiving yards, and that's at minus 110. Next up, we're going to go over to the Philadelphia Eagles and their quarterback, Jalen Hurts. Super Bowl MVP last year. 2024 season stats: 2,903 total passing yards, 18 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 62.5 quarterback rating, which is top 10. A little bit of a down year for Jalen Hurts last year. He statistically didn't have his best season. He actually ranked in the bottom 15 in most categories. However, he was still very efficient, obviously, with that quarterback rating being his second highest ever in the league. Obviously, a very high passer rating too. Last season, it was a dominant showing for Saquon Barkley. We all know what Saquon Barkley did last year, over 2,000 yards rushing. Sort of carried this team to the Super Bowl before Jalen Hurts obviously played his socks off in that Super Bowl and got MVP for the Super Bowl. But with Saquon Barkley doing what he does best, basically led to this passing attack being used less, and it's just as simple as they just weren't needed as much as they'd have liked. Hurts obviously showed flashes during the season of being an elite passer, but again, it was just a simple case of he wasn't needed as much as previous seasons. For some reason, that's not the public perception. But again, he did win the Super Bowl MVP. So in the 3 seasons prior to last year, he had thrown for 3,100 plus in all 3 seasons, averaging 3,567 per season. So again, showcasing that he can be a top passer within this league. This season, the Eagles will have the 4th hardest schedule based on last year's win-to-loss records for their opposing players. They'll play 5 teams ranked inside the top 10 for rushing. Let's try and get it up here. For Russian defense, sorry, not for Russian. For Russian defense, that's not including the divisional games, which are obviously very difficult anyway. In addition to that, the Eagles are only favoured by a touchdown or more in just 5 games, and another 7 games being favoured by a field goal or less. That's obviously highlighting the fact that this year could feature many, many close games. In close games, the ball tends to be in the quarterback's hands a little bit more. So as you can see, they've got a few tough games: Kansas City, Tampa Bay, Minnesota Vikings, Green Bay Packers, Detroit Lions. There's a lot of tough games, Washington and Buffalo at the bottom as well. So there's a lot of tough games for the Philadelphia Eagles and their quarterback Jalen Hurts. But again, with those potential close games, leads us to believe that defenses will turn their attention to stopping Barkley, which could and should mean Jalen Hurts will have the ball in his hands a lot more this season. He's got 2 brilliant receivers in A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, who combined for 1,900 receiving yards last year, 15 total touchdowns for them too as well, along with Dallas Goedert, who's kind of a safety blanket. He finished 4 yards shy of 500. So we think the potential for Jalen Hurts to throw in the high 3,000s, it's always been there, but we think that he should return to that level of production this year. So our projection for Jalen Hurts' passing yard line is 3,600, making the best bet for this player Jalen Hurts over 3,175.5 passing yards at minus 110. Now, the next one, we've only got 2 player props and we've got 2 team props. So the next one is going to be with the Arizona Cardinals. Last season, they had an 8-9 record. They finished 3rd within the division, but there was an upside to what they were able to do last year. 2023 ended with, and obviously last year doubled their wins to 8. So keep in mind they actually had one of the toughest schedules last year. things should be easier in 2025 now that they have the 6th easiest schedule based on last season's teams' win records and things like that. So taking a look at the schedule, they will place a lot of last year's lower end teams. This is just one of many reasons why we like them to take the next step this season. As you can see, they play week 1 and 2, Carolina and New Orleans, 2 of the worst teams last year. And then there's a lot of teams, a lot of winnable games within their schedule this year. So again, another reason why we think they should take a step forward is because of that schedule. Another reason is they have an established group of skill players, highlighted by running back James Conner. I'm a big fan of James Conner. Trey McBride, who led the team last year in receiving yards. Marvin Harrison Jr. and Kyler Murray should take a big step in their second year together. But it's the rest of the roster that saw big improvements in the offseason. They focused on improving the trenches. They upgraded both lines of scrimmage, so offensive line was improved. Defensive line was also improved, bringing in Josh Sweat, Calais Campbell. They focused on improving, those areas to give the best pass rush possible, protection for Kyler Murray possible. They'll also get Jonah Williams back healthy, which is, again, feels like another addition. With Williams, Paris Johnson, players like that on that area of the field, the Cardinals can say they have one of the best offensive tackle pairs in the league. The defense also got better on paper as well. As I mentioned, Josh Sweat, Calais Campbell, Walter Nolan, Will Johnson as well as veterans Dalvin Tomlinson and a few more depth players for the team. They got a huge rise in their squad as a whole, but the potential is there for a run at double-digit wins for the Cardinals in an increasingly wide-open division this year. Obviously, last year it was very, very close between the top 3. We think that they can make the next step for this upcoming season. So the projection win total for the Cardinals, in our opinion, is going to be 10, making the best bet for the Arizona Cardinals over 8.5 wins at -110. Also have a little long shot bet on this one for the Cardinals to win the NFC West. And then moving on to the final team that we have agreed on, and that's going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. So their 2024 record, 10-7 record, second in the division. Last season, they made it 21 straight seasons without a losing record, which actually ties an NFL record. 18 of those 21 straight seasons have been with Mike Tomlin at the helm. Last season, the Steelers opened the season with a 3-0 record, holding opponents to 10 or fewer points in each of those 3 games. That was a feat unmatched since 1973. They remained competitive throughout the season, but did have a 4-game losing streak to end the year, which resulted in them losing the division. Their offense was mediocre, as you can see some of the numbers here. George Pickens under 1,000, Najee Harris just making it to 1,000, Russ Wilson only getting 2,482 passing yards. So a mediocre offense, but although it was mediocre, it was very efficient. They actually ranked 21st in points per game, averaging 21 points per game. You can always rely on their defense as a big boost for the team. Defensively, huge names last year: Patrick McQueen, Minkah Fitzpatrick, obviously TJ Watt, Joey Porter Jr. They yet again will enter the season as a top 10 unit. This year they enter the season with essentially the same defense. Minkah Fitzpatrick being the only sort of big star name to leave the club. They did manage to add some notable players to help solidify their secondary, though. So Darius Slay coming in, Jalen Ramsey coming in, which basically should better Minkah Fitzpatrick from last season. Offensively, they had a huge overhaul. Aaron Rodgers comes in for Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. For as much as the public has turned against Rodgers in recent years, his level of consistency is absolutely unmatched. He's played in every game of the season in 10 of the past 13 years. He's never thrown for less than 3,695 yards in any of those campaigns either. Rodgers actually finished last season as a top 10 quarterback, despite the Jets being a dumpster fire. They also upgraded their skill position talent. Jaylen Warren, Caleb Johnson drafted, DK Metcalf added, and also they do get Roman Wilson back healthy, which is basically like another signing. This will be his first full season in the league. Also, again, Jonnu Smith as well, listed as questionable, but he should go week 1. Another good, solid pass-catching option for Aaron Rodgers. The Steelers have got a tough schedule. It's actually ranked as the 10th hardest in the league. But as long as they can remain a top 10 defense and show the kind of improvements that we all expect of their offense, they should continue to extend their NFL record to 22 seasons in a row without a losing record. So our projection for the Pittsburgh Steelers wins is 10, making the best bet for this team Steelers over 8.5 wins. They were myself and Daly's favourite future bets for the upcoming NFL season. We've collabed on those. We've done some write-ups on Twitter, posted those on Twitter. The next few are my own personal plays, which I'm going to be taking for the upcoming season. So we're going to start off with some player props, and we're going to start off with James Conner. So last year, he had 236 attempts. Hang on, let's go back there. 236 attempts, 1,094 total rushing yards, 8 total touchdowns. James Conner, he's been a solid contender for the Cardinals since he joined the team in 2021. Since he's joined the Cardinals, he's accumulated 37 rushing touchdowns. In those 4 seasons, we had 15, 7, 7, and 8. In the 2 seasons, he finished with 7 touchdowns. As you can see, he only played 13 games, so he was projected to go over those 7 touchdowns that he actually finished with. That obviously forced him to finish shy of his 7.5 touchdown line by 1 touchdown in both seasons. He's a dominant force. He remains the primary unrivaled back for the Cardinals this season. Last season's snap count was up to 65% for James Conner in the running back position, as well as being the main running back 1. As you can see there, he's also a huge contributor into the red zone offense. He had 56 total touches in the red zone. That's the 4th most on the team, most by a running back. But despite being the 4th most used player in the red zone, he actually led the team in red zone touchdowns. He was the most productive player, scoring a touchdown on 14% of touches. Next best was Harrison Jr., who converted at 7%, so less than half of James Conner's total touchdown production. James Conner was healthy and heavily featured inside the opponent's 10 and 5 yard lines, translating opportunities into points effectively. He scored all 8 of his touchdowns inside the 20-yard line. The statistics reaffirm that Conner was the Cardinals' go-to for critical close-range rushing situations. This is something that I expect the Cardinals to lean heavily on next year. Their star running back, especially inside the red zone, where he's been the most effective player on the team. So my projection for next year for James Conner is going to be 10 touchdowns, making the best bet James Conner over 7.5 touchdowns at minus 110. Now, the next player I'm going to go with is one of my favourite players of all time. Davante Adams, former Packer, obviously I'm a Packers fan, former Packer. His 2024 regular season starts, 85 receptions, 1,063 total receiving yards, 8 touchdowns. And, he's been one of the most consistent, one of the best, one of the most underappreciated wide receivers in the league for years and years and years. His receiving yard line set at 925.5, and if we look here, the last time he went under that number was way back in 2017. So he's had it all these years. He's cleared his current receiving yard line. There's one word for that, and that's consistency. Even in that 2017 season, he finished on 855 and he only played 14 games. So again, he was projected to go over that line yet again in that season. In fact, he's actually finished under 925 receiving yards just 3 times in his career. In 2017, obviously, like I mentioned, the other 2 seasons being his first 2 seasons in the league, he's managed to accumulate over 1,000 yards in 5 straight seasons, and he's averaged over 1,296 per season in the last 7 years. While he's had Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback, the GOAT in my opinion, passing to him most of his career in Green Bay and again in New York last year. Let's not forget he had Aiden O'Connell, Jimmy Garoppolo and Derek Carr passing to him in his time in Las Vegas. Now he finds himself in the Rams, linking up with another elite passer in Matt Stafford. He's another underappreciated player in the league, consistently throwing for 3,775 yards. He's actually got that in 12 or more of the last 14 seasons. The Rams are a pass-first team. They pass on 57% of plays. Last season, they really struggled at wide receiver. Let's go to their stats from last year. Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua did both miss time. So they struggled to go over 1,000 yards. This year, Puka Nacua and Davante Adams will be a very difficult duo to stop. I think with the underappreciated skill set of Davante Adams, I think he will, make it an 8th straight season clearing the line of 925.5 receiving yards. So my projection for Davante Adams next year is 1,300 total receiving yards, making the best bet for Davante Adams over 925.5 receiving yards at odds of minus 115. So, like I said, I mentioned Aaron Rodgers a minute ago. In my opinion, he's the GOAT, and he's going to be my next player prop for the upcoming 2025 season. So in 2024, total yardage 3,897, 28 total touchdowns, and he only had 11 interceptions. So he was actually top 10, as you can see there, for passing yards and touchdowns last year. He's very, very durable. He's actually played every game of the season in 10 of the past 13 seasons. He's never thrown for under 3,695 in any of those campaigns. In total, he's thrown for 3,201 or more yards in 14 of his 20 total seasons, with the 6 seasons where he threw under being seasons where he played 9 or less games due to injury. From his full 14 seasons played, he's averaged over 4,000 passing yards per season, 4,173 to be exact. Last season, Arthur Smith's quarterbacks Russ Wilson and Justin Fields played 10 plus games. Obviously, due to injuries, they both played 10 games. They both featured for 10 plus games. And they actually combined for 3,588 passing yards. That will obviously clear Aaron Rodgers' passing yard line this year. With Aaron Rodgers now being the main quarterback for the team, and obviously Arthur Smith is going to have one of the best ever to do it at his disposal. It's a new look offense, obviously new weapons for Aaron in DK Metcalf, Jonnu Smith, as well as a good pass catching back in Warren as well. They've also got a lot of good depth, a fairly decent schedule upcoming as well. This is going to give Rodgers obviously some more nice targets. A good schedule could possibly give him one of the best seasons he's had for a number of years. So the projection I'm going to have for Aaron Rodgers in the 2025 season is 2,800 total passing yards, and the best bet for this is going to be Aaron Rodgers over 3,205 passing yards at minus 110. Now we're actually going to stay in the quarterback room. What we're doing here. And we're going to go to another quarterback that I'm really, really fond of. I really, really like Baker Mayfield. Last season, he finished his year on 4,500 yards, 41 total touchdowns, and 16 interceptions. As you can see there, a top 3 quarterback in passing yards and passing touchdowns. Since joining the Bucs, let's to get stats up here. Since joining the Buccaneers, Bake's actually turned a new page. He's put together back-to-back 4,000 plus passing yard seasons. He combined for 8,544 across the 2 seasons. Obviously, as you can see, he's thrown for 69 total touchdowns as well. In addition to that, he's also played statistically his best ever football since joining the Bucs. If you look at his passer rating and his quarterback rating, 2 of his highest in his career so far. His seasons in Tampa have been really, really good. Last season, he spread the ball around very, very efficiently. He actually had 7 players, or 7 different receivers having 30 or more receptions, and all 7 of those going for 300 plus receiving yards. So again, he spread the ball around very, very consistently and very, very effectively. As you can see there, receptions there, 7 players, all over 300 plus receiving yards. Mike Evans obviously has been a very solid contributor to the Bucs and for Baker Mayfield in his 2 years there. He's now had 1,000 plus yards in 11 straight seasons. Chris Godwin is going to start on the IR. He's going to miss, I think, the first 7 games. But let's remember that Chris Godwin only played 7 games last year before getting hurt. So Baker Mayfield has adapted well without him last season. I think he can do the same to start this season too. The Bucs run game was improved last year compared to 2023. The Bucs are still a pass-first team, passing the ball in 60% of snaps. In the draft and in free agency, they did everything they could to help Baker Mayfield to another successful passing season. PFF have actually ranked the Bucs as the 6th best offensive line headed into the season. So there's a lot of good players in that offensive line. They've also gave him some talented wide receivers, Egbuka, Tez Johnson. Egbuka has 2 1,000-yard seasons in college. Tez Johnson has 3 straight 800-plus yard seasons in college. So they've given him some good protection. They've given him some talented receivers. And obviously, they've already received some good publicity from Tez Johnson's preseason. Scored a few touchdowns and things like that. So Baker Mayfield has built a rapport with this new offensive unit for the Bucs. This season has carefully been built by the Buccaneers, around Baker Mayfield on offense. Defense is very, very solid as well. But in terms of Baker Mayfield, he has even more tools. I believe he can push further and he can push on for another 4,000 plus passing yard season. So my projection for... Why has this come up now? My projection for Baker Mayfield next year is going to be 4,100 passing yards, making the best bet Baker Mayfield over 3,800.5 passing yards at minus 110 for next season. And we're going to start off in the NFC South as a whole. And the bet is going to include the Falcons and the New Orleans and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are going to stay with the Bucs. And the Falcons are going to start for the Falcons. The Falcons improved on a terrible pass rush in the draft, but its passing defense got a lot weaker. Obviously, with the free agent losses that they had, they're still stuck with the Kirk Cousins contract. That obviously limited their ability to really improve enough this season. On offense, Penix Jr., he'll now start, and obviously him and Drake London have built a solid connection. Obviously, I mentioned them in one of the collab bets with Daly. Bijan Robinson has a real potential for a 2,000 plus yard scrimmage season. Could be running back 1 in total yardage this season. But this offense should be able to compete with the Bucs in the division. If their defensive end can improve on last season's performances, I think it could get a little bit dicey towards the top of this division. And then moving on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as I just mentioned, with Baker Mayfield. They went 10-7 last year, won the division. They've decided to run it back. They brought in a lot of players from last season back, including Chris Godwin, Levante David. Hassan Reddick has signed from the Jets. Teams are going to be able to score on the Bucs, but pound for pound, Tampa Bay could be, one of the best top 5 types of offense if Baker Mayfield can continue to do his thing. As mentioned before, 41 total touchdowns, 4,000 plus yards last season. He led the league in interceptions, released interceptions as well, with 16. But you'll take that if they're coupled with another, those other attributes. Last season, the team scored 502 total points, 29.5 points on average. I'll just get that up here. They did have a fairly big loss on offense, though, with their offensive coordinator, Liam Cohen, leaving the team. But with that loss, they were able to bring in their passing coordinator into the offensive coordinator room. So Josh Gizzard is now at that role. So a similar outlook on things is going to continue. In terms of the running back room, Bucky Irving was a rookie revelation, over 1,100 total yards, 8 touchdowns for him as well. 5.4 yards per carry, despite just 3 games started. They added Egbuka and Tez Johnson, as I mentioned a minute ago, both having a lot of 800 plus yard seasons. I think this division is a 2-team race. The Falcons and the Buccaneers are the 2 clear favourites. I think we can rule out the Saints and the Panthers straight away. The Panthers have got struggles at quarterback. Although they improved in the off-season, they've still got a lot of issues around the team. Similar reason for the Saints. A huge problem at quarterback, despite them having some talent around the team. But without a solid quarterback, this team is not going to contend. And I think that just leaves the Falcons and the Bucs to battle out for this division title. So my projection for the NFC South is going to be the Bucs and the Falcons. So the best bet for me is the Bucs and Falcons to be the top 2 teams. That's going to be a plus 150. The next one, I'm going to have to go for my Green Bay Packers. One of the most disrespected teams in the NFL. Last season, they actually won 11 games despite 4 total losses to the Detroit Lions and the Minnesota Vikings within their division. They also played backups, in a few games throughout the season, especially the final games of the season. They started Willis in a few games when Love had an injury. Green Bay does have a little bit of a tough schedule, the 4th hardest schedule to be exact. But it's not out of the question that they could go 4-0 against Minnesota and Detroit again and still hit 10 wins. I wouldn't anticipate them to lose all 4 of those games again this season, but it's a nice buffer knowing that they can and still hit the total. In a lot of other divisions, the Packers' 11 wins would have won that division, but instead the Packers finished in 3rd place, and this is obviously the toughest division in football. The Packers had some roster turnover. They replaced their losses to some certain extent through free agency. Aaron Banks and Nate Hobbs were 2 of the big signings until a few days ago where Micah Parsons joined the Packers. Obviously, Kenny Clark going the other way, but Micah Parsons is probably the best defensive player in the league at the moment. And him signing it is a huge boost on defense anyway. But again, in terms of Aaron Banks and Nate Hobbs, Green Bay are high on both of those 2 players as well. In the offensive side of the ball, drafted Matthew Golden to help Jordan Love with his receivers in Jaden Reed and Romeo Dobbs. Obviously Tucker Kraft as well. They've kept the offensive line pretty similar. Zach Tom, Elgin Jenkins, again Aaron Banks coming in. But I'm backing an elite coach, a high-end quarterback in my opinion in Jordan Love, and a roster that's proven that it can easily beat this total. They've had one of the youngest teams for a number of years, and they've been really, really consistent within the last couple of seasons as well. Theoretically, they should only be getting better from season to season, showcasing a level of consistency with his young core. Offensively, last season ranking inside the top 10 in most categories, led by a top 5 rushing attack in Josh Jacobs. A solid pass attack as well. As you can see here, Jordan Love did fairly well last season in the air, 3,389, 25 touchdowns. Josh Jacobs 1,329 with 15 touchdowns. So working well as a whole offensive unit, and then obviously defensively being top 10 in most of the categories as well. Quay Walker being the lead tackler despite missing a few games. Xavier McKinney breaking records for his interception streak. But yeah, with the offense adding Matthew Golden, defensively bringing in Micah Parsons, this is a unit on both sides of the ball that have managed their roster with losses with a lot of good additions that can help improve the team. And I think while Matt LaFleur is in charge, I'd back them again and again and again. During his time in charge, they've made the playoffs in 5 out of 6 seasons, and they've actually finished with 10 or more wins in 4 out of 6 seasons. My prediction for the Packers next year is 11 wins. So I think the best bet for the Packers is over 9.5 wins at plus 100. My next play is going to stay in the NFC. And we're actually going to go with the Dallas Cowboys, the team that just traded Micah Parsons to the Packers. They finished last year with a 7-10 record, which was 3rd in the division. Prior to a poor 2024, the Cowboys have won 12 plus games in 3 consecutive seasons. This team's got a habit of falling short when it matters, but this team is a whole lot better than their 7-10 record last season. The Cowboys will get Dak back healthy. Obviously, he's known for being a slinger, but when it's worked, it's been a huge factor for the Falcons, for the Cowboys, and when he's throwing well, it really benefits the team. And when Dak has been healthy, he's played majority of the season. He's thrown for over 3,500 yards in 6 out of 6 seasons. So we can just see here, when fully healthy, he's thrown for a decent amount, thrown for a lot of touchdowns too, including 2 4,000 plus yard seasons, all of which have had 8 or more wins in those seasons. 3 of those seasons he actually had 10. So let's not forget he was the MVP runner-up in 2023 as well. In his absence, the Cowboys' offense struggled last year. Rico Dowdle had 1,000 yards rushing. CeeDee Lamb had 1,000 yards receiving, but they couldn't translate those yardage stats into touchdowns for the team, and more importantly, they couldn't convert that into wins. As I said, the Cowboys getting Dak Prescott back healthy is a boost for the team, but more so for CeeDee Lamb. The last time CeeDee and Dak linked up in a fully healthy season, CeeDee went for 1,700 yards and 14 touchdowns. That's the kind of production that this Cowboys needs this season. If you now add George Pickens to CeeDee Lamb, Dak has himself a potential top 10 wide receiver pairing. Very, very high upside for this team. They continue to bolster his offensive line. Obviously, Zach Martin retired, but they added some more names on that defensive side of the ball as well. A unit that was ranked middle of the league last year. Obviously, Micah Parsons leaving is a huge loss. But Kenny Clark is a very, very good player he has been for the Packers for a number of years. So him joining the team is a bit of a boost too. They definitely needed someone in that pass rush outside of Micah Parsons to get things going. But again, with him being around, Micah Parsons, there was no telling how that issue has affected the locker room anyway. So him leaving could potentially make that locker room a little bit better. There's also an uncertainty around Brian Schottenheimer. They brought him in to replace Mike McCarthy. But all in all, I think this offense is ready to roll. I think if the defense can be good enough to contribute to wins, if a healthy Dak can be protected, and a solid looking offense can do things that it should be able to do, I don't think they can get much worse than last season. So my projection for the Cowboys season is going to be 9 wins, making the best bet Cowboys over 7.5 total wins. And then I think I've got 2 more team bets. So we're going to go to the AFC. This is one of my favourite bets of the whole season. Their season last year finished with a 13-4 record. first in the AFC East, and they secured the number 2 seed in the AFC last year. They were able to win their division title for a 5th consecutive season, which is the first time in franchise history. As well as that, they completed an undefeated season at home, which was the first time since 1990. The Bills' offense lost some big names last year in Stephon Diggs and Gabriel Davis. They still managed to score a franchise record 525 total points with 65 total touchdowns, which were both second most in the NFL. The play calling was on point. They used the rush and the pass effectively. They actually ranked inside the top 10 in all major offensive categories. Defensively, very solid too. As you can see there, they actually achieved a plus 24 turnover margin, which was best in the NFL since 2012. Also allowed the 11th least amount of points per game to opponents with 21.6 on average. Josh Allen again was absolutely brilliant, being the first quarterback with 5 consecutive seasons of 40 plus total touchdowns, with 13 different players having at least 1 or more touchdown last season. That actually tied an NFL record, but the protection for Allen was brilliant. They allowed a league low 14 sacks, which also went hand in hand with the Bills having the least amount of turnovers with just 8. Headed into the 2025 season, Allen comes out off of an MVP award. His O-line remains largely intact. His wide receiver room gets a boost. Obviously, Shakir Coleman. They've added Elijah Moore and Joshua Palmer for a little bit of depth. As well as that, Cook got an extension, keeping the ground game very competitive as well. Defensively, also bringing in some high impact players. Joey Bosa being the main name there. Ogunjobi, Trey White returning, Tyler Rapp coming in. So a lot of good veteran players for this defense and offense as well to help boost and help better what they did last year. So in my opinion, the 2025 Buffalo Bills look poised to continue their reign in the AFC East, with an offense that is clearly ready to roll, a defense freshly fortified, huge boosts in both areas of the field. If they can keep Allen playing at an MVP level and the new look defense improves more than last season, this team I think will finally make it to the Super Bowl. So my projection for the Buffalo Bills is to make it to the Super Bowl, but my best bet is going to be win the AFC at plus 350, and also to have the number 1 seed in the AFC at plus 225. And then my final bet is going to stay in this division. It's going to be the New England Patriots. Now, this is a bit of a controversial one, in my opinion. I don't actually like taking this bet because I think the Patriots are going to be very, very good this year. Last year, 4-13, which landed them in 4th in the division. Very, very poor season from them last year. Their offense was bottom tier. It actually ranked in 30th for points per game. As you can see here, 17 points on average, only 30 touchdowns in total. Their defense was obviously below average as well, and obviously that made it a very hard season to overcome, resulting in a bottom of the league finish. As a team, they scored just 289 total points, but their defense allowed 417, resulting in a minus 128 point differential on the season. As well as ranking in the bottom 2 for points per game on average, they were a bottom 5 team on third down. Struggling to convert on third down obviously meant more punts, longer fields, and when they did actually get into the red zone, they still couldn't convert into scores, and they ranked as the bottom 5 team, or a bottom 5 team in the red zone. Another factor that didn't help, they gave up 52 total sacks, which resulted in longer downs and obviously harder conversion rates. However, they did unlock some building blocks for the 2025 season. Drake May will come good with some offensive additions. He's shown flashes that he can be a very good player. O-line was a little bit of a concern. It needs a little bit more stability, and their defense needs a boost as well, but that's exactly what they did in the offseason. So on offense, they selected Will Campbell, with the 4th pick in the draft to help protect Drake May. They also drafted him a new wide receiver in Kyle Williams there to go with Stephon Diggs, who they also added in free agency, and Demario Douglas, who has proven that he can be a very good receiver in this league. Add in Matt Collins as well. Trayvon Henderson got drafted to go with Ramondre Stevenson. So a very good offensive boost. Defensively also had a little bit of a boost as well. They added, obviously, Vrabel at head coach, which is a huge boost and probably one of the biggest, additions to any team this offseason. But arrivals of Milton Williams, Carlton Davis, Harold Landry, they're huge boosts to their defensive unit. Obviously, Christian Gonzalez played very well for them last year in the secondary. The Patriots are looking like an improved team as a whole. They've been helped out with statistically the 3rd easiest schedule on the season as well. But there's a big issue for me, and that's it. I think it's going to be very difficult for them to turn this season completely around. I think it's a very big ask for them to double their wins and more from what they got last year, even if they are going to be an improved team. Obviously a good schedule as well. The AFC remains a very competitive division. I don't believe they end the 2025 season with a winning record. So regretfully, although I think they are going to be in a very, very good and improved team, I'm going to have to take the under on their season win total. So my projection for the New England Patriots is 7 wins. So the best bet for me is under 8.5 wins. I had the collaboration bets between myself and Daily College Bets, which will have been posted on Twitter by the time this comes out. Don't forget to give those a like and a retweet. If you like any of the same bets that we're on, make sure you let us know. If you've got one that you like in particular that you want us to hear, drop that in the comments as well. Obviously, there's also my NFL player prop bets for the season and the team bets for the season as well. So they will be timestamped, so you can click to those whenever you need to. But as always, make sure you drop me a follow on Twitter. Make sure you drop Daily a follow on Twitter too. Likewise for YouTube, make sure you head over to YouTube, drop us both a subscription, turn notifications on so you don't miss a single episode. You can go back and listen to AFC preview, NFC preview, EPL, fantasy football. Obviously, I'll have my fantasy football episode, which is going to be out next Tuesday, the same day as this competition will end. So make sure you're in this competition where I'm giving away 3 fantasy tickets on Fan Team for the season-long game. Like, retweet, comment NFL on this tweet to be entered. And that's all. That's me all wrapped up for the day. So good luck for the upcoming season, and I'll catch you later.